Hello, I'm Dr. John Zahina-Ramos, and welcome to my backyard. What I'll be doing this evening is giving you a tour of my backyard and a description of the philosophy behind the landscape as we go along, as it transitions from here what we're seeing more formal landscaping. Now moving towards food-producing plants. Down to the lower right are pineapple. Before we head into the primary production beds, I want to take you through some of the utilitarian areas and some of the areas that I'm working with a philosophy of environmental restoration. Mind you, during this tour, I am in the city, and we're going to be hearing all kinds of the noises that you're going to hear in a city. So it's the real deal. What I'm doing is panning across to the landscape that we just walked through from the driveway. And here we have the formal landscape transitioning into more food plants, the pineapples, cassava, and a few other things. This area adjacent to the shed, the white building that you see in front of you, has been planted around with species of trees that are indigenous to the Florida tropical hammock forest type. When these trees grow up, they're going to form a canopy over the top of this shed and replace some of the ecological function that was lost when the home was built. Some of the species include gumbo limbo, paradise tree, and this one here, autograph tree. If you look on the leaves, you can see some of the people have actually signed their autographs onto the leaves. These trees used to be planted in the Florida Keys. It's native to the Caribbean Basin. And the folks there would plant them next to their front doorstep. And when someone came by, they could just scribble a little note on the leaf. And then it was like leaving a note without having to have a piece of paper. So it's kind of a fun and interesting way that they got around lack of pen and paper in those times. Also here are some native Florida air plants as well as a native royal palm. This of course is a back area where I keep my compost and mulch that I pick up hopefully for free from most places. And traveling down the path, it heads towards the compost bin under the loquat tree. The loquat tree is one of the two trees in this backyard that were here when I moved here. Everything else has been planted. If you see on the right there, a couple of tubs of containers waiting to be used, maybe in the beginning of the growing season, filled with potting soil and seeds. This compost bin is remarkable and unremarkable for its view, but remarkable for what's happened with it. I used to pick up the vegetable clippings from the cafeteria at work, and over the period of 1 year, I was cycling through this 2,100 pounds of scrap vegetable and fruit clippings from the cafeteria at work. And all of that was going into my garden, into my organic vegetable gardens. The remarkable thing is that was a low-volume cafeteria, so you can imagine how much waste is generated by regular restaurants, high-volume restaurants, and how that could be captured and recycled within our urban vegetable gardens. This back area here behind the loquat tree looks like just sort of a scrubby area. There's a couple of banana leaves waiting to go into the compost bin, but there's a lot more going on here than what meets the eye. I have a roosting colony of zebra longwing butterflies that come in around this time of day, and they flutter in and they roost in these leaves of the tree under these twigs and stems, hidden away from sight and safe from the danger of predatory animals and organisms that might want to eat them. So even though areas in your garden may look like they are not very important to other wildlife species, they certainly are. Here's a pair of beds that I've recently planted seeds in. The first one here that I'm showing you, there are peanuts planted there. They'll be up in about a week to 2 weeks. In this other bed, these are black-eyed peas. And lo and behold, there are actually some peas coming up already. You can see them, they're little sprouts. And straight ahead of me is another bed of pinto beans, which have not yet started to emerge. Oh, well, I'm going to take that back. I see a few of them did come up today. Those were planted about 5 days ago. Next to them is cassava, which is also called yucca in Cuban restaurants, and lemongrass down to the right of the yucca, the taller plant. Now I'll give you a view of the garden beds. Sorry about the autofocus on this. Here's a trellis, more appropriately called a grape arbor. It does have muscadine grapes growing up on it. They share the arbor. During the winter months, the grapes are dormant, and I allow the calico vine to grow across it, which is a larval food plant for the pipevine swallowtail. And in another month or so, the grapevine will start to sprout leaves, and I'll cut the calico vine back and allow the grapevine to have its summer. These are potato plants. Next to them are turnips. And I think there are some nice turnips down there already, or some starting to form. Let's see what we can find. Oh, there's a few. Yes. Potatoes. And here's a wire cage setup where I earlier grew about 25 to 30 pounds of cucumbers on it. The cucumbers I harvested about 2 to 3 weeks ago and cleaned the bed out, giving it a little rest, and I'm thinking of growing butternut squash up on that. There's a tree in front of me with some flowers on it. This is a peach tree, starting in bloom, and soon little peaches will form. And down the aisleway of a couple of the production beds. Let's have a look here. On this side, we have white-stemmed bok choy that some of it I've let go up to seed. And here's some green-stemmed bok choy, also called baby bok choy. Next to it is radicchio, and that'll eventually form heads in about another month or so. And next to that is a plant of fennel. Not quite forming a bulb on that one, but I do have some other ones that are beginning to form bulbs. You can see a small bulb behind there. And next to that are the broccoli plants. Yeah, you can see some broccoli. Turning my attention to the bed that we just passed, there's a rather robust eggplant, and next to it, on some poles, are plum tomatoes. I'm growing 3 different kinds of plum tomatoes this year. Back next to the bed with broccoli, these are carrots. There are a few nice carrots down here. Let's see if we can pull one. These are a type of carrot that are short, not long, but they're short and stubby for a reason. These are bred specifically for people who are growing in containers or growing in raised beds where you don't have a lot of soil depth, but you still want to grow carrots. They're perfect for that. Or if you have soil that's rather stony, and the carrots would become deformed if they grew long. These are the kind of carrots you want to grow. That's parsnips, and more broccoli, more beans. These are also pinto beans. And here, onions, cabbage, and a large planting of tomatoes. a little late in the season, so some of the lower leaves are starting to die back, but that's nothing to be concerned about. Here's a better view of the tomato patch. Some of those plants are 6.5 feet tall. The next bed is a pineapple and Russian red kale. Growing with dwarf blue kale. This is the good stuff for eating fresh in a salad. Spicy mustard greens, and boy, they are spicy hot. And daikon. And on the daikon as well, I believe there's some larger ones down here. We might be able to catch a view of some of this. Can you see down there? Not so well. Oh, there. Go. There's a little one down there. And stepping back so you can see the full view. It's an old ladder that was too rickety for me to climb up on anymore, and I set it out in the garden and I let the beans take it over. So these are pole beans. These are green beans that grow long vines. And as you can see, it's hanging with green beans. I'm going to need to get out here and harvest these soon. Next to the beans are the cabbages, the heads of cabbages. There's also a head there that's not a cabbage, but that's there just for encouragement. And next to the cabbages are kohlrabi. A lot of people don't know those, but those are a German type of vegetable. And any Midwesterner worth his weight in salt grows them. And here are my robust kale plants. Very, very large kale. They need to be harvested. And next to the kale, papaya, and a wheelbarrow overflowing with sweet potato vines. Now, some of the last few vegetables I want to show you before I end this short tour. Lima beans. Beautiful purple cabbage beginning to set heads. And rutabagas, which I have high hopes for, and I hope they don't let me down. There's a little bit of a bulb down there, just starting to form rutabagas. And on the trees, shrubs I should say, gandules, otherwise known as pigeon peas, starting to flower prolifically, and you can see the peas hanging and blowing in the wind. Well, this has been a tour of my primary vegetable production beds in my backyard. You can find out more about me and what I do at www.justonebackyard.com. And I'm Dr. John Zahina-Ramos, otherwise known as Dr. Z. Thank you for visiting. My next tour will be of the production containers that are on the back of my home for those of you who grow in containers. Until then, thanks for joining me and take care. Bye-bye.